Yari Gari Nangungari Gunga Lucy. Hello, I'm Lucy and I've just welcomed you in my local language of the Buddingum Nation from the Darling Downs in Queensland. I'd like to acknowledge the land where I'm gathered today, the Yagara and Yurupul people. As the National RAP Coordinator, I am proud of what we as the Salvation Army and we in the Queensland Division have achieved in creating our first national Innovate RAP. We sung out you mob across all our expressions to join us in a journey of reconciliation, and you mob answered our call, with over 800 people participating in over 80 virtual yarning circles. This was a personal choice each of you made to be involved. It was a personal choice that you made to speak into our yarning circles about what we are doing now and what we could be doing better. You mob made this happen. You showed bravery, courage and humility, and I thank all of you mob for being involved. Our Innovate RAP consists of 89 RAP deliverables, and we've had an amazing achievement 18 months into completing our RAP. Of the 89 deliverables, we have completed and embedded 80 of those deliverables. Many of those are actually fitted and placed within each division, which means that core local mission programs across Queensland have committed to our reconciliation journey. A part of our Innovate RAP is we have 5 big commitments. These commitments are truth-telling, which many of us across Queensland have embarked on a journey of truth-telling, learning about our local community, learning about local elders and local stories and bringing them back to core. Another key commitment of our RAP is Christmas cheer. As we all know, every year we come together in December and we provide toys and hampers and bring joy to those families who most need it. Queensland has actually been a lead in this area, with supporting over 2,000 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families across the division, not only in toys but also in food hampers. One of the communities, Cherbourg, that we've been doing Christmas cheer now with for nearly 5 years has meant that we've also been able to embark on a journey, embark on some yarning that's been really important. Cherbourg actually holds a special place for many of us within the Salvation Army. Cherbourg was a place that we, the Salvation Army, actually helped set up. Cherbourg, known back then as Baramba Mission, is a place where we, the Salvation Army, have started to go back and embark on a journey of truth-telling. Through the Christmas Cheer initiative, it means that we've been able to break down many barriers. It means that we've been able to come together and yarn with mob in Cherbourg. We've been able to come together and share in prayer and ministry, and only good and better can come from this. Another key commitment of our RAP is the returning of artefacts. This is a really unique and significant commitment. This is about identifying artefacts and paintings and literature that have come through the Salvo stores. Over the last 18 months, we've done quite a lot of research around this key commitment. Over the last 18 months, we've done quite a lot of research and investigations around how this key initiative will sit across the nation, but across each division and across each store. And it's really exciting, but it's also a really important part of truth-telling, which means that when we get an artefact, we have to identify where that artefact is from, and then we have to engage with community at a core level to be able to culturally and safely hand that artefact back. Another key RAP commitment is cultural immersion, gathering our cadets as they commission into officership. It's an amazing experience where they get to go on a journey with First Nations people across the division, learning and understanding the many complexities that exist in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And our last key commitment of our Innovate RAP is social justice and advocacy. The Salvation Army has been actively advocating for social justice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders over the last year. 2 key areas of focus have been the Indigenous voice to Parliament and raising the age of criminal responsibility to each of the states and territories. The Salvation Army ensures that all advocacy in which we engage in is examined from the perspective of an Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people, which means that our First Nations people within each division has a voice, and that when things are being discussed and that social justice areas are being looked at, there's actually an Indigenous perspective that's also at the table giving advice. So our Reconciliation Action Plan focuses on 4 different areas. Relationships, and relationships are about how we engage with First Nations people, not only internally within each division, but also externally. How do we engage in the First Nation communities that we work in, and are we engaged with them? Respect for country, respect for each other, and respect for other ministries of First Nations churches and faith-based groups. Opportunities. Opportunities is a great focus area because it's about how do we bring opportunities to First Nations communities, but also First Nations staff and volunteers within the Salvation Army. How do we support our First Nations? And the last focus area is governance. Now, governance can sometimes sound a little bit boring, but governance is something that helps to break down systematic racism. Governance is something that helps to shape and form what we as an organisation, what we as a ministry want to achieve. Our national RAP has a big focus on governance. It's not just about here's 89 deliverables and we all need to try our best to achieve it. There's actually key areas of reporting that is required for each RAP. Not only is each of our deliverables signed off and reported on at the EMC, it also then goes up to the Salvation Army Board. And the board have a thorough look at each deliverable and each focus area to ensure that we are not only making systematic changes within our organisation, but also making changes or helping to support changes within our First Nations communities that we work in. So 18 months in from our Reconciliation Action Plan, there's been some really great successful stories, and a lot of them are contributed towards yourself. So one of the good news stories is when our Chief Secretary hosted a webinar on the Uluru Statement from the Heart. Invited was Professor Megan Davis and Auntie Pat Anderson, and they shared of the journey of the Uluru Statement from the Heart and what it meant for First Nations peoples. The Uluru Statement from the Heart consists of 3 main areas: voice, treaty, including a Makarrata Commission, which is an agreement-making process, and truth-telling, truth. It was an amazing experience. And for us, for First Nations people, we were so overwhelmed with over 800 people logging in to listen to this webinar. We had many of you asking questions in the chat, really important questions, stuff like, what does treaty mean? And what does treaty mean for me? Another success has been our Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Cultural Competency Framework, which includes resources and supporting documents and e-learning modules, including cultural training induction and cultural competency training. Through our RAP yarning circles, we were able to bring many people together to discuss what's important and what kind of tools we need to be able to engage with First Nations communities. So we now have a live website where you can go and you can look and discuss and find resources and make sure that our organisation and where we minister is culturally competent. Some of these resources are our retention and recruitment framework. It's a really, really important document. If you've ever sat in a circle with me, I will say to people, we can advertise and we can promote and we can get as many blackfellas on, but it's whether we can support them and help them to stay in their positions. A part of the cultural competency framework is there's different tools that we can use to support First Nations people when they join the Salvation Army. A part of this framework is also the Butter Butter network. The Butter Butter word comes from my language, which means biggest mob. And this network is about supporting First Nations people from across the division, across the territory, to come together for a yarn every few months, just to do a general check-in. If you've ever been around First Nations people, one of the first things we say to each other is, who's your mob and where you come from? And I can tell you now, if there's someone who's standing right in front of me right now, a First Nations person, I'd be able to connect them somehow back to me. Because First Nations peoples are all about kinship. and it's all about family. The Butter Butter Network has been really successful. We've had over 60 First Nations people connected into it and it's come into our first yarning space. Another success of the recruitment and retention framework is that we've been able to employ over 100 First Nations people in the last 18 months. And of that 100, we've had 89 people who've retained employment with us. To some organisations, that's probably not a big number, but to us, it's a massive achievement. It means that First Nations people feel safe. It means that First Nations people are enjoying their time with the Salvation Army. Another great achievement that we've had is that our National Human Resource Team, in collaboration with Career Trackers, has hosted a number of First Nations interns across the division, specifically in Queensland. This is about building opportunities. A key focus of our RAP, of all RAPs, building opportunities for First Nations people, employing First Nations people and supporting them. So I ask you now, after 18 months of being part of our first Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan, how do you feel you have contributed to our RAP? What are the things that you have done out of all the 89 deliverables, and I'm not asking you to go and read every 89, but have you been engaged with National Reconciliation Week? As a Corps officer, have you hosted an event for NAIDOC? Have you encouraged people within the programs that you're delivering to participate in NAIDOC or National Reconciliation Week? Did you participate and log into our Uluru webinar? Did you participate in Auntie Sue Hodges' weaving workshops? Did you join with us in prayer and ceremony? My question to you is, how have you contributed to this Innovate RAP? My second question is, how do you feel you could further the Salvation Army's RAP journey? Are there things that you've been thinking about in engaging with our First Nations peoples that you really want to have a go, but you don't know where to start? Have you started to look into what truth-telling means in your local Corps? Are there things on truth-telling that aren't too inviting, that aren't too nice? Is the history that your local Corps possesses quite sad? Because it's okay to have those awkward conversations. That's what truth-telling's about. And the one thing that we've got to remember is we've never done truth-telling in Australia. Is the next part of your reconciliation journey with the Salvation Army about, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to embark on truth-telling, no matter how uncomfortable it is? And the last question I put to you, which is similar to the first one, in my opening remarks, I spoke about people being brave and courageous and joining our RAP circles 2 years ago. People answering the hard questions and feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Lastly, I'd like to tell you all that in December this year, we will have completed our first National Innovate RAP. A massive achievement for such a big organisation, with many, many goals that we've achieved, many deliverables, but it also comes back to what's happening in our division. It comes back to our relationship with people, and it comes back to our relationship with God. How do we minister together in this shared place? It's a bit of a secret, but I'll let you all know. There's a high possibility that we will be moving on to a stretch RAP. The stretch RAP, we will invite another consultation process, which will mean that you'll be able to be brave again and be courageous and join us in RAP yarning circles. And we'll be asking the same questions again. What are we doing well now? And what can we do better? I really hope that many of you mob find that courage and strength again to join me in circle and yarn out better ways that we can fulfil our commitment to reconciliation. Thanks for listening.